Alright guys, this is for your Unit 6 test corrections. So what I need you guys to do is on your test, if I write it down, I need you to write it down. Whether you got it right or wrong, make sure you have all the details written down, because if I get your test back and there's nothing extra written on there, sorry about your bad luck, but I'm not going to be able to help you out on that. So please make sure you copy everything down, okay? So at number 1, we are just trying to figure out which equation matches this table. Like we've done on so many things before, we are using y equals mx plus b, and m is going to be our change in y over change in x. So we got to see how much each of these is going to change by first, okay? On the y side, each of these is going to be changing by 2.54. And on the other side, pretty obvious, they are all changing by 1. So our slope is just going to be our change of y, the 2.54, ooh, that's a 5, over 1, which is just 2.54. That's our slope. So y equals 2.54x plus whatever b is. Well, we don't know. And if you look at the equation, there's only one that matches so far anyways. Clearly, none of those have a b, so the answer is going to be A on number 1. Number 2 is a little bit weird. Pretty much the lava is flowing. We're moving at 3 miles in 0.5 hours. So if we're moving at 3 miles in 0.5 hours, we're going to move at 6 miles per hour, okay? If you chose F, I feel bad just because F looks really, really close. If you look at it, here's 6 miles, and it looks like we do that in 1 hour, which sounds great, but here's the problem with that. This is our change. This is our Y here. This is our X here. This is saying hours per mile. We need miles per hour, so F is going to be out. And 6 miles per hour, that's actually our slope, our M, so Y equals 6x is what's going to work for us. And if we don't move, if no time goes by, we don't go anywhere. So there's not going to be a plus B on it, so our answer has to be G on that one. This one's going to be plug and play. What I recommend doing is taking whatever your X values are and plugging them in for that X and see if you get the correct Y value back out. But you got to check all of them to make sure that you're doing what you need to. So if I were to take 2 right here, let me get that highlighted real quick. If I take that 2 and plug it in there, well, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. That doesn't match what we've got there, so that's not going to work for us, so A is out. If I take the 0 on the next one, if I take 0 and plug it in for X, 0 times 2 is 0, plus 1 is 1. That works so far, so now I'm going to try it on the next one. If I take 1 and I plug it in, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 would be 3. That doesn't match the number we have there, so B is also out, okay? I'm going to change colors just a little bit. On C, actually, I'm going to jump to D real quick. If I take 0 here and I plug it back in up here, 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 would be 1. That doesn't match what we have there, so D is going to be out. So I already know that my answer is going to be C on this one. I could plug in any of these numbers. So if I were to try 4 and I plug it in right there, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 more would be 9, which is what we have there. And I could go through and check all the rest of those, but they're all going to match. Taking a look at number 4, what we are trying to do is we're trying to look at the graph and see which one of these sentences matches best. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of read them one at a time. So F, it says in 1 week the plant grows 125 millimeters. Well, and the slope of the line is 1/125th. So that's not actually going to match at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this one out because that's my slope right there, and that doesn't match that at all. So F is definitely out. G says the plant grows 125 millimeters each week. Well, if I look at 1 week, that might be right. It's really, really hard to tell right there. So what I want to do is I want to try to find something that makes a little more obvious. So I'm going to look at, this is the only really obvious point right there. That number right there is going to be 750, and it's 750 in 6 weeks. So if I do 750 divided by 6, I get 125 millimeters each week. So G matches. So on number 5, Ingrid is earning $200 each week, plus she's got her 20% commission. We know that she wants to earn a total of $400 per week. Unfortunately, the easy part doesn't make it any easier for us. Our total is 400, so we know our answer has to equal 400. Well, that didn't narrow it down at all. She earns $200 each week, plus the commission, so we're going to be looking for 200 plus something. Well, that only really gets rid of B, okay? The 200 happens one time, so those all match right there. So now I've got to figure out this 20% commission bit. Well, she's getting the 20% commission, but I need that as a decimal. So it's going to be 0.2 or 0.20, whatever floats your boat, doesn't really matter. So it's going to be 0.20, and it's on each sale. So it's going to be 0.2x or 0.20x. So our answer is A on number 5. I love questions like number 6 just because I'm really hoping you guys aren't ever missing these things. It says, which scatter plot demonstrates a non-linear relationship? Well, linear means line or line-ish or close to it. So that's a line, that's a line, that's a line. Unfortunately, I have to go to the next page so you guys can see the actual answer. If you look at it, because mine's a little bit different, this is not a line. It's kind of an arc, or it's actually going to be called a parabola later. The answer ends up being J on number 6. So number 7 says, which scatter plot demonstrates a linear relationship? Well, again, you're just looking for the one that is a line. That one, right? A is an arc. That one's a thing. I don't know what. That one is just all over the place. So those are all out. The only one that makes a line is B. Number 8, it says Carly's progress from a 5-kilometer race is displayed. So pretty much the question is, it wants to know if she ran a 4-kilometer race, about how many minutes would it take. So here's 4 kilometers right there. This thing makes a pretty decently straight line. So what I've got to do is I've got to follow that 4 over and see about what it matches. Well, it looks like it's going to match there at 35. So our answer ends up being H on number 8. So number 9, we're just doing a scatter plot. It says, based on the trend line, what would be the weight of a person who is 72 inches tall? So first I got to figure out where 72 inches tall is. Well, between 68 and 70, well, my number in the middle is going to be 69. So 68, 69, 70. This will be 71 because I'm skipping every other one. So 72 would have to be right about here, a little bit off of our graph. So what I have to do is I have to follow this up, see about where that's going to be. It's going to be somewhere in there. So our answer has to be pretty darn close to, looks like 160 or a little bit above 160. Well, the only answer choice that matches around 160 is B at 163. On number 10, we're trying to get an equation from the table. I like starting with the easy stuff. Wherever x is 0, y is going to be my b. Okay, so I should have backed up a little bit. Y equals mx plus b is what we're working with, okay? So that 1 is going to be b. So I've got y equals, I don't know m yet, there's x plus 1. Well, fortunately, that kind of marks off, that only gets rid of 1 for us. Nope, it gets rid of 2. It gets rid of g and h, because g ended with -1, h ended with +4. So now what I've got to do is I've got to figure out my slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick two easy to read numbers. Between 1 and 9, I'm changing by 8. Between 0 and 2, I'm changing by 2. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my slope is 4. So my answer is going to be J on number 10. On number 11, they give us the slope of 2.5, which unfortunately does not narrow it down at all. Okay, so now what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to do some plug-and-play stuff. I'm going to have to take, so this is x and y right here. I'm going to have to take my x, and I'm going to have to plug it in for each of these and see if I get the correct y value back out here. Okay, so I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 and I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the correct answer just so you guys don't, so I don't waste time and so you guys don't waste time either. So on C, what I've got to do is I'm going to do y equals 2.5. I have to multiply that times 4 and then add 3. And whenever I work this out, this should give me 13. So if I multiply this right here, I get 10 right here. So 10 plus 3 is going to give me the 13 that I was looking for. So the answer is C on number 11. Looking at number 12, the dots that we have are just all over the place. So we already know that this is not going to be linear, okay? So it's got to be nonlinear, but there's really, there's no association. If I look at my x values, well, x could be any number, and I could get just about any y value back out of it, meaning that there's absolutely no correlation here. So on this one, the answer is going to end up being J. The data set has no trend or no association. Number 13, it is a little bit tough. We're talking about 3 different athletes on this one, and we're trying to figure out what kind of association the time of day and their energy level has. If you look carefully at it, I'm going to use the highlighter in this one. The time, well, like earlier in the day, there's not much energy. It kind of peaks right about here, and then it starts going down. And most of these are kind of the same thing. This is definitely not linear, but there is some kind of association to it. So that one says positive linear, that one says negative linear, and this one says, well, so both of those are out. A and B are both out. This one here says no association, but we can see that there is some kind of association, so the answer has to be D. Number 14, it looks pretty simple, but it can also be kind of tricky. If you look at it, we clearly have a positive association here. What's happening is Amanda is, I think she's babysitting here. So as the time goes up, the amount of money that she makes is going up, but not the amount of money that she's making per hour. So you got to be careful with some of these answer choices. So F, it says as the number of minutes she spends babysitting increases, the amount of money she earns decreases. Well, that doesn't make any sense, so that's out. G says as the amount of minutes she spends babysitting decreases, the amount of that she earns per hour increases. Well, this per hour thing happens on H2. We're not changing how much she earns each hour. Those are out. So it's going to be the amount that she spends not the amount she spends. The amount she earns increases as she spends more time babysitting. So J.